moral education, which ought never, in any circumstances, to be rational. There was a pause. Then the voice began again. Alpha children wear gray. They work much harder than we do, because they're so frightfully clever. I'm really awfully glad I'm a beta, because I don't work so hard. And then we are much better than the gammas and deltas. Gammas are stupid. They all wear green, and delta children wear khaki. Oh no, I don't want to play with delta children. And epsilons are still worse. They're too stupid to be able. The director pushed back the switch. The voice was silent. Only its thin ghost continued to mutter from beneath the 80 pillows. They'll have that repeated 40 or 50 times more before they wake. Then again on Thursday, and again on Saturday. 120 times 3 times a week for 30 months, after which they go on to a more advanced lesson. Roses and electric shocks, the khaki of deltas, and a whiff of asafoetida, wedded indissolubly before the child can speak. But wordless conditioning is crude and wholesale, cannot bring home the finer distinctions, cannot inculcate the more complex courses of behavior. For that there must be words, but words without reason, in brief, hypnopedia. The greatest moralizing and socializing force of all time. The students took it down in their little books, straight from the horse's mouth. Once more the director touched the switch. So frightfully clever, the soft, insinuating, indefatigable voice was saying. I'm really awfully glad I'm a beta, because not so much like drops of water, though water, it is true, can wear holes in the hardest granite. Rather, drops of liquid sealing wax, drops that adhere in crust, incorporate themselves with what they fall on, till finally the rock is all one scarlet blob. Till at last the child's mind is these suggestions. And the sum of the suggestions is the child's mind. And not the child's mind only, the adult's mind too. His life long, the mind that judges and desires and decides, made up of these suggestions. But all these suggestions are our suggestions. The director almost shouted in his triumph. Suggestions from the state. Excerpt from Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. Growing up, I often wondered how people who lead seemingly normal lives ended up in completely opposite spectrums. Though I do not enjoy bringing up the subject of Republicans versus Democrats, I think that these are good examples to use, as they are rooted in one's morals and beliefs. When the reader is first introduced to Brave New World, it is explained that these people who live in this society have come to this way of life by suggestions. It is difficult to make someone change their beliefs when there is force. In George Orwell's 1984, the reader is told the main character finally admits that 2 + 2 = 5, after forced electrocution. But does he really believe this? Or does he only succumb to the dread because he understands there is no way around this? 2 + 2 must equal 5 in order to survive in this society. There is also inspiration that drives beliefs and habits to change, but how much inspiration must there be and on what conditions? Think of self-help books. A majority of people will read an inspirational self-help book and then become high, like when we read our characters taking Soma in Brave New World. But how long does that high last? Not long at all. I think the reason why self-help is such a booming industry is because when we read it, we feel good. Think that we can change our habits, and when we don't, we come crashing down, looking for another book that will inspire us for just a little while longer. The actual changing of our beliefs or habits is not a good feeling. The only fantastic feeling that comes from it is being told we are going to feel fantastic. I suggest reading philosophy instead. It may not make you feel better, but it will keep you up at night working. So inspiration and force are not enough to sustain a change in belief. But what is? Suggestion. Media such as TikTok and Netflix have figured this out. Because this video is for you, and this movie is also for you. And while you're watching this, I'm going to put it in the algorithm and suggest a few more and more, until hours have passed by, and now you're rearranging your room to look like a cottagecore aesthetic when you grew up being the goth kid, because no one understood your love of cute little mushrooms, and now you must heal your inner child and learn to crochet little turnips and play Animal Crossing. Quit your job and start lowering your cortisol by drinking more water and moving to the country to cook eggs from the chickens in the backyard because you don't eat food with MSG in it anymore. And it doesn't matter if you listened to Rob Zombie and dyed your hair black when you were in high school, because that was not you. Don't you know? You liked that cute video of a squirrel wearing a hat that we showed you. You told us so, and now you're destined to buy a whole new wardrobe. And sometimes we break out of that everydayness that is invisible to us, but we insisted that it was not invisible, that we could see who we were all along, what we stood for. But then we step in to observe, and what do we see? An entirely different life that we had dreamed. And the funny part is that it all seemed to happen right under our nose, even though we were deliberately choosing what we wanted to believe. And it is there, in that observation, that we realize, am I trapped by suggestion? And so again, I wonder how we got to the point of, I am a Republican and you are stupid if you are a Democrat. I am a Democrat and you are stupid if you are a Republican. But after reading Brave New World, I understood this. Woe to the human who succumbs to the power of suggestion, which is all of us. And perhaps that is the real burden we must carry if we are to understand the other and communicate rather than entertain each other. Because that is where we are now. Entertainment. It is interesting to me that while we are told outright, the world state that stood for community, identity, and stability had only become like this from extreme, calculated measures of not only suggestion, but things we, the readers, would perceive as highly, highly immoral. The instability of the reservation came to be also by suggestion, just a suggestion that came from the completely opposite direction. One society inflicts pleasure, while the other inflicts pain. And now there are two extremes. What happens when you raise two people in a completely different environment, and then expect them to come together and communicate after limited exposure to the other? Both parties become completely dangerous, immoral, and even comical to each other. There is no way to see them as a decent human being, or one that even seems real. By the end of the story, the savage is now seen as a spectacle, a thing to entertain rather than to understand. Now, for me personally, I think it is good to cling on to core beliefs through careful consideration of collected ideas and experiences. For if we don't cling to anything and everything is moldable, then who are we? But if we cling too much, then there is no reconciliation or room to build and think of a better answer to very difficult questions. Regarding the author, Aldous Huxley, I believe he was trying to tell us this. Everything is a suggestion, no matter where you are, or who you are, or how you came to be. And that is one thing that we all share in common.